Hello, everybody. It looks like we're live. I wanted to welcome you all to the very first main stage session of Wakelet Community Week. I hope that you're all having an incredible time, as much a good time as we are as well in the office. It's been absolutely amazing this week. I hope that you all enjoyed Wakelet Live. Obviously, there's still 3 whole days left of sessions as well, but this is a really important session. It's one that I've been looking forward to for so long because I'm going to get to learn a lot as well. It's all about SDGs, and I know that this is a subject which a lot of people have probably seen around social media, not quite understood what it is yet. Well, this is the session where you're going to learn everything about it and how to incorporate it into your classrooms and your learning environments as well. So without further ado, I would love to welcome our main stage guest, Jennifer Williams, to the stage. Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Hi, Misbah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for welcoming me here today. I'm so excited to get started.
Thank you so much. Jen, do you want to tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself?
I'd love to. Well, I will be sharing for the next hour. I'm bringing sunshine, as I mentioned to Misbah earlier, from Florida. I'm within the United States. I am a proud Wakelet ambassador and really looking forward to being together for about the next hour to share on my work with Teach SDGs and with my role as the director of Take Action Global nonprofit.
And we've had a few conversations in the past, haven't we? I remember us talking about the Student Ambassador Program and how cool it would be to incorporate the SDGs into that. So that's something interesting that we'll definitely be looking at in the coming year. And I just wanted to thank everybody from all over the globe who's joining us today. I can see in the chat, once again, we've got a truly international audience. And the awesome thing about this is that there are so many different things that you'll be able to take away regardless of where you're from geographically. So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
I am too. And we have a special guest too that will come in a little bit later. So
we do, yeah.
Hour.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty to learn for sure. So I know that you've got a presentation prepared for us, Jen. So I'm going to let you take it away and we'll jump in a little bit later.
Thank you, Misbah.
That's so
fantastic.
Much.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone. And thank you for everyone joining in the audience. I'm so excited to be here to share about the SDGs and why the SDGs, why us, and why now. So as I mentioned, we will be together for about the next hour to talk about the SDGs. So if the global goals are new for you in your classroom, don't worry because we've got you covered and we'll go through everything. And then we have some links to share after where you can start putting everything into action right away. So as I mentioned, I am a proud Wakelet ambassador. I threw up this hashtag Heart Wakelet because as I was preparing for this keynote today, I kept saying this in my head. I kept going, I just love Wakelet. I love the technology. I love the team. And so I had this hashtag floating in my head as I prepared for today's session. So I just wanted to quickly start by thanking the team at Wakelet for holding space for this community, for this week and all year long. I'm so grateful for everything that you all do. I know that you had shared with me as you all were preparing for this week that with Wakelet, you all are pretty much 50% technology and 50% community. And that, from an educator, just really speaks to my soul. So thank you for the celebration and for holding space for where we're actually at right now in education. I also started thinking, and I looked back and found this direct message you'll see here from 2019. And when Wakelet came onto the scene, you all came on with a splash. And I remember being like, wait a minute, what is this? This is a space to curate ideas and information where teachers are being celebrated. And I needed to know everything. So from that moment on, I became a huge fan of the Wakelet team. And as we were just saying with Misbah, we seem to find a way to meet every couple months. And so about 2 months ago, we met and they were like, we're getting ready to hold this community event. And we have a lot of our educators creating Wakelets around the SDGs, and we'd love to learn more. So that's our goal here today, the Sustainable Development Goals and ways we all as educators can take action in our classroom. So whether you're working with younger students or university, if you are an arts teacher, humanities teacher, a science teacher, the SDGs will have a place for you. And I'm excited to share on some of those ways. So backing up just a little bit, I mentioned that I'm here in Florida. I have been an educator my whole life. I remember as a little girl, I would pretend to be a teacher and I'd have my imaginary students. I then grew up and got to be a real teacher and have a classroom. And I was a reading specialist. I was a principal. And at the last school I was in K-12 before I moved to higher ed, we were at a Montessori world school. We were early adopters with technology, and we were trying to find ways to have these new devices that landed on our desks connect to our school mission. So as a world school, we were working each day to build global competencies with our students. So we were focused on the peace curriculum and cultural studies and geography. We had these really amazing opportunities to take our students to go meet with students we'd been working with our iPads. So we traveled to places like China and Russia and Spain. And I found that these were some of the richest experiences of my students' educational careers with us. So started to share more after I left K-12 in 2014 with educators, trying to find ways to connect them with classrooms around the world, really seeing that we could use technology for virtual exchange, for global collaboration, ed tech companies similar to Wakelet coming in and saying, we want to support you in this journey. And then in 2015, our entire world, guided by the United Nations, came out with this roadmap, this plan for the planet that, in my mind, could really help guide the way for teachers looking to find their place in this global conversation. How might one teacher in one classroom in one part of our world join together with others for a collective effort to make a difference for our children today and for our future? So the SDGs, this beautiful roadmap that we can see here, 17 sustainable development goals that we as a world came together in 2015 to reach by the year 2030. So you'll see here there's goals around poverty, hunger, climate action, life below water, life on land. We have our very own goal with goal number 4, SDG for quality education for all. But as all teachers know, we're so much more than just SDG 4. Our work crosses over the borders of these goals, and we're able to work interdisciplinary classroom work and with schools from all around the world to create projects, to create connections, and to create change. So the SDGs have been interesting because if I talk to science teachers, they're like, oh, the SDGs are science. And if I talk to humanities teachers, they're like, oh, the SDGs are humanities and human rights. As I mentioned, arts teachers will even say the SDGs are for us arts educators. And I'm really finding that educators working with students as young as age 4, all the way up to university classrooms, can really find themselves reflected in these 17 goals. So for me, I started off with the SDGs with SDG 4, which made a lot of sense. Soon after my work around equity, I found a place in SDG 10. Partnerships. I love partnering with different organizations, different educators, trying to find ways to work together for a common purpose. So then found myself with a home in SDG 17. And then in more recent years, really trying to focus in on my work with Kuhn Temmers and our nonprofit organization, Take Action Global, with climate education for all in SDG 13. So as you can see, you may not have a similar path as I did with the SDGs, but every educator who I've had the opportunity to have worked with has been able to find themselves somewhere in these SDGs. So in that gentle way, we can all move forward, finding ourselves on this mission for good, for our planet, and for people. So something else that happened right around the time when the SDGs came out in 2015, we started to see that there was more of an interest in student action. So we were seeing student activism. We're seeing social good find its place in our classrooms. We're also seeing more adoption with ed tech. So for me, as an educator who is very interested in using ed tech, but also interested in this parallel path of global collaboration, then these two paths met in something called Education for Sustainable Development. So for a lot of us, I'm trained as a speech pathologist, a literacy specialist. Something when I talk about climate action definitely doesn't come from my pre-service teacher training. So Education for Sustainable Development really became this blank canvas for us as teachers to determine a path forward. How might we bring in things like climate action and gender equality into our classrooms when we never really had been guided generally before to do that, which was perfect for finding ways to come together with our students as co-learners. So for me, I am very transparent with my students about this. I'm like, I'm on this journey to find ways to bring the SDGs into classrooms. I am definitely not an expert, but I'm looking for a way forward. Do you want to join me? And this invitation in. So what started with a handful of educators looking to bring the SDGs into classrooms then became 20,000, 50,000, now over 50,000 educators working each day from all around the world to bring the SDGs to the work they're doing in schools everywhere on this planet. So for us as teachers to have this opportunity to really design and map out a plan, I've been watching and have noted some themes that I wanted to share with you today. So the first one is Education for Sustainable Development is collaborative. I also wanted to say a big shout out to our Teach SDGs and Take Action global community of educators. I know many of you are probably tuning in today because so many of you are using Wakelet in your global projects that you're doing. So what we found is Education for Sustainable Development, this work around social good and climate action and environmental change and human rights. This is all something that we're not doing in isolation. We're finding ways to come together with like-minded educators to build together, to work together, to share. So for a while, in the beginning of our work around the SDGs, we were first just trying to get the word out that the SDGs existed. And then in 2019, we decided it's time to make a project. It's time to make a way for teachers to come together to work and share as they're bringing the goals into their classrooms. So I put out a tweet one day on Twitter and said, anyone interested in joining in a project? I gave it a name, the Goals Project. I created a very simple website and had a Google form for people to sign up. At that moment, I was hoping for 16 other classrooms. So I wanted a total of 17 where we could each take a goal and then share. So within weeks, we found that we had about 300 classrooms who had joined in. And then by September of that year, we had about 2,000. This past year, we did the Goals Project. We just finished it up in March, and we had 4,000 classrooms from over 120 countries coming together. We had students as young as age 3. We had teachers who were acting as facilitators, leading groups from all different countries. We were able to translate the curriculum in different languages. And we followed this week by week plan where we first welcomed teachers in to meet their group and their facilitator. For a lot of our classrooms, they had never worked with the SDGs, so this was new for them. So we wanted to have an opportunity for them to first meet the global goals. Why are we interested in these 17 goals? How are we planning on getting to 2030 successfully? And then something really fun happened in week 2 because every classroom was gifted one SDG. So it was this big surprise. A lot of our teachers wrapped their global goal number in a box. They had classrooms predict which one they were going to get, which one did they hope for. They had their big reveal. And then that was the SDG that their classroom would then become an expert in. So we guided them through meeting a lot of our different partners. We had representatives from the United Nations come in. Of course, we have not been able to visit the United Nations headquarters in New York City. So we brought the UN into our classrooms and they did this beautiful tour of the UN. We talked to them about impact. How do you design for impact? How do you find the data that is going to be important to share with your audience? We connected the SDGs to our theme of environmental stewardship. We talked about packaging up that solution, things like storytelling, what types of tools can help you share your story out with the world. And then we concluded with this beautiful celebration of learning on March 4th with an online event. So every time we do our projects, it's important for us that our students feel reflected in the work. We don't want them to necessarily see us as older people sharing and professing to them what we think is important to them. We want to make sure they're hearing from people who look like them, who care about things they care about. So this is our Teach SDGs Goals Project Youth Ambassador, Ayush Chopra. So every week, Ayush would send a video out to our students sharing on what their goals that week would be and how they could get involved. And then they got to work. So everything with the Goals Project was incredibly open-ended. So we started with a goal and then we opened it up to the students. So different from some projects, we didn't have a step-by-step directions. We didn't have a rubric for teachers to grade against. We just said, put trust in your students and see what they can create. So by the end, we had students who were creating advocacy campaigns and inventions. They were creating theater productions. They were creating community efforts where they were going out and meeting with policymakers and helping to guide the future of their work. So the Goals Project, goalsproject.org, you can check it out. So what we've tried to do is curate a lot of the different projects that our students have submitted and shared. You'll see here, these are some of the projects from our first year that we have permission to share. So you can see students sharing projects with posters, with presentations. They're creating games, and this project, students were making bracelets out of plastic that they were reusing. They were meeting with experts. They were going out and doing art projects. So you can see a lot of these that can be inspiration to you if you're looking to bring specific SDGs into your classroom. This classroom right here, they wrote and recorded their own song on SDG 15. All right, so speaking of curating and sharing, I looked back and this is one of my favorite projects to share because they did such a wonderful job of documenting their journey. So this was a classroom in Malaysia who participated in our first project, and they at the time were assigned SDG 14. So SDG 14 is everything life below water. So for our classrooms, when they're assigned one of the goals, SDG 14, life below water, that's when it becomes open-ended. How do you go about approaching SDG 14? Well, for this classroom, they decided to first get to know the goals. So you can see them here. They're learning about the SDGs, they're doing research, they're documenting along the way. They decided to Skype in an expert to learn more about the underwater area in their local community. They then wanted to get to learning about coral reefs. So they learned all about coral reefs through their research. They created a Minecraft world designing a coral cage. And then this project was only 4 weeks long. We've made it 6 weeks now. So you can see what students can create in as little as 4 weeks when they have opportunity and space to do that. They then built their coral cage and went and they dove down and planted it in their local areas. So this classroom then became the inspiration for others. So as they're able to share out on their experience curating here, they can document. And now I'm going back, this was in 2019, I'm going back a few years later and able to show you into their beautiful experience. So 2021 goals project. You see here, we're still getting our classrooms submitting. So they're coming in, they're submitting their projects, and we also have them going through a goals project bingo. So each classroom became an expert in one of the SDGs. And now what the rest of the year can bring is the students can go in, they can learn about other SDGs from classrooms all around the world. I often get asked, how can I get my students connecting and learning from others? How can we find classrooms in different locations where people may live or look differently from us? And for me, this is a wonderful way to start. If you check in here on this page where you can look at the other projects, hear about perspectives of different students of different ages that live in different geographic locations, and you can leave feedback for them too. We also have the collection of our presentations. So we had our Day of Solutions plenary session with UN Undersecretary General Melissa Fleming. So we have that recorded. We had a dance. So our official Goals Project Day of Solutions dance, you can watch that here. We also had a poet. And then we had our featured art. So you'll see, I'm going to show you our art here. And this is from a classroom in Thailand. They were actually kindergarten students, and their artwork was selected as our official artwork for the Goals Project 2021. And as I saw this, I was like, oh, I wish I could have been in that classroom just to hear the conversations of the students as they were sharing about all of these drawings that they created connected to the global goals. And you think about those young students in kindergarten in Thailand. So they're working right now in 2021. And in 2030, when we start to realize and see that these goals are coming to an end, are we going to reach them? Are these the students who are going to get us there? And after going through these projects, I really have such hope that this is the generation that's going to bring us to where we need to be. So education for sustainable development, collaborative. Education for sustainable development is also optimistic. So Kuhn and myself and our community of volunteers are always looking to find ways to make sure we do keep that hope and joy as part of the work. So a lot of research has been done. When we talk about things like human rights and we talk about climate change, we want to ensure that the work isn't just the gloom and doom of the problems that we're seeing out in our world. There's also wonderful opportunity for taking action. And so we don't want them to have this paralyzing effect where they feel like, I'm just one person. How can I possibly make a difference? We are trying to find a way to show them that every single effort, no matter how small, can make big change for our world. So this next example is from a recent project we just finished up. You can see here on May 23rd. This was a mini project that Kuhn and I did called the Rethink Plastics Challenge. So we had 3 weeks. We came together. Students were working with their teachers and learning about the history and production of plastics. They're learning about considerations and uses. And then they were coming together and thinking about potential opportunities to solve the problems that they had identified with a plan for action moving forward. So I just showed you what one classroom could do in 4 weeks. Imagine if we only had 3 weeks. What could possibly happen in such a short period of time? So I think you're going to be inspired by this classroom from Belgium. So one of our wonderful friends, Neen, she is a teacher of students in Belgium who are themselves refugees. For her, some of these children are coming to her, and this is the first year they've been in school. So Neen has all of these different curricular objectives that she needs to make sure she hits, but she also joins in with these projects. Neen shared with me last month as she joined into the Rethink Plastics project that many of her students had never even heard of the word recycle. So they didn't know that this was something that existed or that was important. There wasn't a translation for them to understand in their native language. So she was able to open their whole worlds into this opportunity to make a difference. So they got right to work. So they started collecting as much plastic as they could. They ended up deciding to focus in on caps. So bottle caps. They collected as many bottle caps as they could find in their school community. They sorted them by color. You start to think about opportunities for language and sharing. And then they decided that they wanted to create games using the bottle caps for the other children who were living in the refugee camp where they were staying. So you think about things like empathy and perseverance and finding a way to create something when you have such little resources, all for others. So these refugee children creating for other refugee children using problem solving and creativity. You look at these games and how amazing they are. I mean, like they're gorgeous. So they decided they wanted to make sure they had one game enough for each of the students. 2 weeks ago, they even made their own logo, so FLX game. And then they had a problem. So they were using glue to build these games, and they started to find that after use, they were falling apart. So with a little bit of creativity, they found these clips that they could use to have them stay together and work for the camp. But they needed a little bit of money. So next step for them, create a GoFundMe. They're not going to take no for an answer. So they put it out on social media. They get money to support their efforts to make a change for the world through their work. Education for sustainable development is optimistic. So this next point, education for sustainable development, is us all. So as I mentioned with the SDGs, everyone can find a place in the global goals. So for me, I mentioned I'm heavily focused on SDG 4, 10, 17, and 13. I am one teacher in Florida and finding a way to make these SDGs fit into the work that I'm doing. But it's not just for teachers and administrators. We're also seeing that young people today are using the SDGs to create their own paths forward for not just learning, but also their careers. So I had talked to Misbah and the Wakelet team and said, there's no way we can do a session today for the Wakelet Community Week without bringing in one of our youth ambassadors. And as I mentioned, Ayush Chopra, he has been with me from the beginning, and he was our youth ambassador for the Goals Project. I'm so excited to bring Ayush in today, and he has agreed to answer some questions and share with teachers about ideas youth may have for bringing SDGs into our work in teaching and learning. A little bit of background on Ayush. So when I found the SDGs in 2016, Ayush, he'll have to let us know, but I think he was about 13 years old at the time. So he's in Canada now by way of India, and he started to bring the SDGs into his classroom projects, finding a spot on social media. Since then, he has founded and organized his own nonprofit organization, SDGs for Children, and he's authored multiple books. So I am so excited to bring in Ayush Chopra to share on the youth perspective for our teachers here today. So welcome, Ayush. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much. I just poked my eyes. That's a little teary for me. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being here. I know that we've had fun getting ready for today's session, and I have some questions prepared for you. I'd love to just dive right in.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. So I know that a lot of our teachers within our network follow along with the work that you're doing. And I couldn't start today without sharing some big news that I saw you post on social media this past week. So I'd love for you to share your big news here with us today if anyone hasn't yet heard.
Oh, the big news is that I'm graduating from high school in like 19 days left. Yeah, around 19, 18 days left for my last classes. And I recently accepted an offer from the university. It was like my it was in my top three choices. So I'm pretty excited to accept that offer from McMaster University. And the program that I'll be attending is automation engineering.
Incredible. And I'm quite certain you'll be bringing the SDGs into your work with that career path, right, Ayush?
Yeah, but SDGs are like in our pathway since like beginning, since I have known them. So they're literally everywhere I go, and like everywhere I see the SDGs being implemented, and like world is now also working on it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what I was thinking about as we were preparing. You and I came to the SDGs at about the same time. You were much younger then, now that we're in 2021. So in 2015, what was the appeal for someone around the age of 12 or 13 with the SDGs? And how did the goals help shape your path that got you to where you are today, getting ready to go off to college?
The first time that I got aware of these sustainable development goals, or at that time, all I knew were these were the targets. Was I was in grade 9, and I think so I was 13 years old, and I was participating in my school exhibition in India, Alco International, and that exhibition was solely based on sustainable development goals, its agendas, what they are. So I got inspired by the exhibition's message, and like the message was to spread the word about the SDGs, basically to spread the awareness. And through that only, I think my MO and like my organization's motive is to spread awareness about these goals, because I think that unless we know them, we can't achieve them. So through that, I started creating short YouTube videos on each of the 17 goals for sustainable development about child education, bullying, climate change, and many more stuff. But before even I knew about these goals, I was already working on some short films and stuff, because that was one of my passion to like go edit videos, photography, and that stuff. So once I got to know about them, I started to realize how important they are. I could directly, connect my work to these goals, and like felt like I was right in the area to spread the awareness, and through that Twitter and like every other step followed along.
And I know, like for us, we were in at the very beginning, and so much has changed. I remember there were just a few of us at the time that were trying to find ways to get the message out that these goals existed and that we all have ownership over them. And I think you were with Teach SDGs. You were our first youth ambassador too, which was pretty cool. Yeah, the first round. So from the very beginning. How have you seen that teachers and students over the years have started to adopt the global goals? What changes have you seen? What do you predict for the next few years? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Like I've seen a lot of teachers, implementing and like learning about these goals. So like, for example, just talking about my school in India, that's how, not even me, our whole school got to know about those goals. And I think so that was the year they came out only. So it was pretty new to everyone, because before that Millennium Development Goals, I don't think so I ever heard of them, or my teachers or my school never even talked about them. So those were pretty new, and like United Nations working on these goals was pretty new to every one of us. So from that, I think so what my school personally did was to reform the whole curriculum there. Reform the curriculum, like, so from homeworks to tests to classes to any projects, everything was somewhere or the other linked to these sustainable development goals. And like, if we are talking about future and like how future is going to be affected, so I have one example in mind. Like, let's take an example of the current issue only, the global pandemic. So coping with the pandemic was missing from our syllabus since the beginning. Like if we are talking about how complex issues like sustainable development goals could be brought in our classroom, or not even SDGs, just complex issues, like coping with anything, or like how to tackle problems was some way or the other missing from the classroom. Like nobody ever taught us how to survive this pandemic, or like we are now exploring solutions ourselves when we are already in the middle of it, along with our teachers, our friends, and even our parents. So now, me, my friends, my school, everyone understand why bringing such complex issues into the classroom are important, and also bring them in early stages for children. Because personally, I think if students learn about these before they have like fully grown up, would be better for them, so that they can start applying it in their daily lives. So I think this is the time when a lot of standardized curriculum and tests are going to be set aside, and are being set aside. So all the schedules have been turned upside down. So what I think is to change this uncertainty, sorry for that, in school systems into an opportunity. This is the chance not only to reform education, but also bring reform through education. And and it's not about focusing on the problems we will solve through education. It's about the solutions we will create through education in our classrooms.
For me as an educator too, it's like this perfect collision where we're seeing students find ways to share about things that they're passionate about. And
Exactly.
for me as a teacher, it's like I just need to get out of the way. And I think students like you, Ayush, you're going to do it with or without teachers. So you're like, I'm moving forward, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. But you all, as young people now, have a lot of the tools that you need. And so when you have teachers as facilitators who are there to be right alongside you and saying, I might not have all of the answers, but I'm here to try to find ways to empower your voice and the things that you care about. With education, I've seen some interesting shifts. So we've moved from when I started teaching Ayush, it was like they would hand you this box and be like, all right, get to work. And you kind of knew what your year would look like. And so then things have really started to change in the past 10 years. So teachers no longer are just kind of on the sidelines. They're actually starting to create. And I think that's when they said, well, we can create with our students. So this shift from just curating the experience to actually creating, but now, and what you've shared on, I think is taking action. So not just talking about scenarios, but really real world work that we can all get involved in. So I've loved having the opportunity to work with some of these young people who are really creating the solutions with the UN. That was something too. When we started with the UN in 2016, I didn't realize that the UN really cared about our perspective and our ideas on how we could reach these goals. But then, and I think you right along with me, we found out that they do care, and they recognize that teachers and students have to be a part of the equation to get to 2030. So they care, and we encourage teachers, share out on social media, tag in the United Nations, let them know that you all have ideas. So I had another question for you. So I don't know if you get this question a lot, but when I do interviews like this, I will often get asked, what is your favorite SDG? So I'm not going to ask you that question because my answer always is, how could I possibly pick? For me as a teacher, it's like the SDGs are the students in my classroom, and I love them all, and I feel like it's a puzzle. So you can't have one without the other. So it's like, oh, how do I pick? But I did get an interesting question recently on which global goal do I feel like will be essential to meet by 2030 for the success of all of them. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on which SDG 1 through 17 do you think is going to be most critical, or maybe multiple goals to achieving Agenda 2030?
Yeah, I really like the way you frame this question, because I also get asked this question a lot: what's my favorite, or what goal inspires me the most? So, but to answer your question, the one that will have the most impact on the others, like I think so every single one of them is important. Like, let's not go there. Like every single one of them is important. But the one that I feel like strongly connected to is going to be the quality education. Because first of all, I've worked with sorry, I work with children and some educators about how to reform education, how to bring SDGs into the classroom. So I've been more focused on the education side of it. But I think through education, most of the problems can be solved easily. Once we give a right to education to like every child in the country, we are going to solve the problem of poverty because everyone will be well educated to earn for themselves and get proper jobs. If they are working, zero hunger, and everyone's getting educated, so there'll be a equality among everyone, and through that every goal can be achieved simultaneously. So that's why I think quality education is one goal that is one of the most important ones. But at the end of the day, it's all about quality education and partnership. We like partnership is also one of the most important one. You need to be together in this situation to shape a fair world or achieve a greater success in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we both share that love of SDG 17 and really coming together and partnership and in solidarity too, like united arm in arm
Exactly.
forward. You have a unique perspective too. That's made me think that I have opportunity to work with so many teachers in different parts of the world, but you, Ayush, you get to work with so many young people. And so with your work with your nonprofit and bringing young people together for this cause, maybe you could share too, just some things. What are you seeing that students are out today doing? What are the things that they're passionate about? I know you care about SDG 4, SDG 17. What are some of the other global goals or ways that students and young people are creating and sharing? I'd love for you to kind of share on that perspective here.
Yeah, regarding students and sharing the every day, like on social media too, I like on Reddit. It's on Reddit especially. I follow a Reddit thread about what students are doing and what how they're presenting it. So every day I see new and innovative ideas about how they're working towards sustainability, and it's not just basic projects. It's like huge projects. Like someone's using robotics to create a robot in order to improve the infrastructure of the company, and like how they are implementing different ideas into a innovative way is pretty mind-blowing for me. And so that's one of the reasons I also feel like working and spreading awareness about these goals, because everyone has so much to offer. And like if everyone is aware of these goals and like if they channel through that energy in order to work for us like a specific task or target, they will bring huge impact. They bring a huge impact on the world. And like one project that I was really excited about to like hear about was my friend's Arav. What he's doing is like he goes out and plants. He's mostly working on life on land stuff. So he usually goes out, plants trees and stuff. And like what he tried to do is like on special birthdays of his mentors or his friends, he used to take his friends who lived here to plant like specific amount of trees for the birthday to like to tell the world that we are here. We need to bring the change in this world. So it's not just art, like everyone is working towards it.
Right. So much action, you know, not
Yeah,
just sitting and reading about it, but actually getting out and doing it
exactly.
and then sharing. And I think what you're sharing now makes me get back to that last point of optimism. And it's just like, it's not just like all of the bad negative things. It's like, look what we can actually do. And it doesn't take a lot of time or resources. It just takes the desire to get out there and do the work.
Yeah, everyone. You go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead,
Okay.
Ayush.
What I was saying was like everyone has a different way of achieving things. Everyone's not same. Everyone has a different perspective in their mind how they want to achieve a certain task or problem, right? So for me, especially, I'm more of like spreading awareness because I've done that since the beginning. I'm more of a social media guy. But whenever I get an opportunity to go out in the real world to bring a change, I'm always up for it. But since now we are in lockdown and stuff, this the only platform we have to connect people, and like which has really helped is connecting much more people, is social media. So that's why I'm more of a, I would say, social media guy, and like spreading awareness about these goals, making YouTube videos, making Instagram stories and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you're so good at it. I think you
Thank you.
brought up a point there too, about learning. And I think this has been for us, I know for myself and Kuhn and our organization, the educators we get to work with around the world, just an opportunity to learn. And I think back, you and we were in our first goals project. And so we were creating those videos every week and we were sharing them out. And we had just such a diverse network. So we had young students and older students and so many languages represented. And I remember you and I were like quickly getting those videos out every week. And then I'm sure you'll know what story I'm going to share. So we had, I know Mary Alice probably is tuning in to this session, and she had talked to us and said, you remember you told me in the beginning of the goals project, this is all about access. So access to ideas, to people, to opportunity. And she said to us, are you ensuring that students who are deaf are able to access this information? And you and I were like, it was like this light bulb, like, and this was years ago. And of course, now we have subtitles as a standard, but we were like, of course we should have subtitles on our videos. And so you scrambled really quickly. Like, I remember you were running an IB club and you're in high school and you have your own nonprofit, and we were like pulling it all together. But that moment of learning, it was just something that didn't occur to us. But then when another person shared, and then we just were able to be nimble enough to make that change. And it was great.
Yeah, it was also our first time doing this big of the stuff, because we weren't expecting this much of the participation, right? So we were all focused into the basic, like the main part of the program, and we sometimes missed that, like, slide portions that could have a huge impact. But now, like this year, the second goals project that we did, we had like 6 translations, I guess.
We did
6 translations, subtitles to every single one of them video, and everyone had proper access to the material that we were providing.
Right. And we're still learning, and we always are putting that out there, saying, please keep us posted. We want to know. And we just have such an amazing community that is on this learning journey with us, and we're all figuring it out together. Okay, so I have 2 more questions for you, Ayush. One here, I'm thinking about our teachers who are joining here for the Wakelet Community Week. So I know that a lot of teachers are joining in and will be viewing the recording. This is a week that is honoring education, not just celebrating it too, as the team had told me, but really where we're at right now. We've all gone through just such an interesting year, that things that happened that we could never have anticipated. And teachers are really, I think, open to hearing other perspectives. I feel like you here representing youth, and I know we never want to generalize, and you have one unique perspective, but anything that you might be interested in sharing with teachers who are listening, considering bringing the SDGs into their classrooms next year, what do you think students around the world would want teachers to know?
One thing that I would really like to share is it's about it was in a novel that I was reading. I read about this in the novel. It's called Golden Circle of Life. So I'll take like 2-3 minutes to like explain what that is. So basically, Golden Circle explains how much more we can achieve if we remind ourselves to start everything we do by first asking why we are doing it. The Golden Circle works from the inside out. Like, why at the center of the circle is your purpose, cause, or belief. How is your process, the specific actions you will take to realize why. And third one being, what are the results which you will achieve when you follow the purpose? So the golden circle of why and life changed my views on how I thought the world actually worked. So the stories that people follow are basically of the individuals and organizations that start with why. Like one example that I would like to give is like, have you ever thought, why is that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? Like, because I think he wasn't the only man who suffered in pre-civil rights, and he wasn't certainly the greatest orator of all times. So basically, why him? I think he had a gift. He knew how to inspire people. He knew if the civil rights movement was to succeed, it would need tens of thousands of average citizens united by a single vision to change to change the country. So Martin Luther King started with why. So once you know why to work for SDGs, or why to contribute to curb the climate change, for example, or why to bring equality among people, how and what will be just outcomes that you will decipher on your own or with help of your peers, your parents, your educators. So by doing so, I think you will get inspired to work towards Agenda 2030 and motivate others as well to join your journey of shaping a fairer world.
Well said, Ayush. You always inspire me so much with your words and your wisdom, and I'm just so grateful that we had the opportunity to work together from the beginning, but also to share today with the Wakelet community of educators, who I know are like the Wakelet team, not just here for EdTech, but really here for community and to make a change for a world. So I'm excited we had the opportunity to share.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have you stay with me, because I know we've organized some ways that teachers can get involved right away. So I'd love to jump back over to our slide deck and share about some of those ideas. And I know a couple of them you have a part of too. So let's share my screen and I will get us ready to go. Okay, so present. So here's our last point. Education for sustainable development is within reach. So we've talked a lot today about access to ideas, to information, to opportunities. And so we wanted to end today with some ideas for anyone who maybe already is bringing the SDGs into their classrooms, or if the SDGs are new for you. So our first tip would be to go to the UN's website, and these goals are all of ours. So we have ownership over them. We also have permission. So you can print out that SDG poster. If you're able to do just one thing, this is always the thing I recommend. And print that poster out, put it in a place that people will see it. So if you're a classroom teacher, you can post it in your classroom. If you're working on online spaces, you can put it in an online space. And what happens next is people will see this poster, and I don't know if it's the colors or the icons, but they're always coming and going, well, what is that? What does sustainable development mean? What are these 17 goals? And then that becomes this authentic opportunity for us as teachers to be able to say, well, these are 17 goals that we as a world have come together to achieve by 2030. I don't know everything about all of the goals, but I'm excited to learn which goal looks interesting to you. And then you give your students or your parents or your community members that invitation to have this anchor item with the SDGs. So Ayush just shared SDG 4, SDG 17 are interesting for him. That brings him purpose. So now you may have a connection with Ayush if you're very interested in SDG 4 or 17. I shared that I'm hyper-focused on SDG 13 right now and looking at ways we can bring climate education for all. So anyone interested in SDG 13, I'd love to connect. So those are that's one easy way you can bring the SDGs into your classroom. Number 2, so Ayush and I shared a lot on the Goals Project. So the Goals Project will be back next year. We have our project in January, and we'd love to have you. Registration is open. You are welcome to register now. Take Action Global is our nonprofit with Kun Temers and myself, and we have projects all year long. I mentioned we just finished up the Rethink Plastics Challenge, and I'll share in just a minute about our next big project that we have. And if you're interested in using ed tech for social good, I'd love to have you check out my ISTE book. So ISTE is the International Society for Technology and Education. Teach Boldly is my publication with them. And I get to share on Ayush and all of our educators with Teach SDGs and Take Action Global. So I'd love to have you check that out. Ayush, I'll turn it over to you for number 3.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, so these are the 2 books. One of them is written by me on the left-hand side of your screen, Shaping a Fairer World with SDGs and Human Rights. So what I have tried in that book is to explain all the 17 goals in a simpler and an easier language for everyone to understand, not just children, not just educators, for people who haven't even heard of them, so they can understand it easily what those goals are. They have activities alongside it that you can use to like try to understand them more better. There's also human rights in there, explaining explanation about them, and I think so 3 or 4 success stories as well, about people who are using SDGs in their classroom and what steps and planning they are doing. The second book on your right is by my sister, which was just released like a month ago. Know Your Rights or Have No Rights. So it was her second book, though. It was her second book. So this book is basically about child rights, explanation about what child rights are, how they work, and why they are important to a child or to a youth. So these 2 books are like being used right now in many of the classrooms, and I get like snapshots of the classroom using this book from my mentors and stuff. So yeah, these 2 books are like explanation about SDGs, human rights, and child rights in an easier language, if I just want to put it in a simpler way.
Mm-hmm. And to that point too, so the SDGs I know are important to us both and our community of educators, but also you mentioned the rights of the child and then the Declaration on Human Rights too. So there's other documents that we're pointing to as well that can help support teachers in the work they're doing with social good. So I know that you and your sister, and Ayush, would you please share too on your sister's age?
She's 13 right now. The
13,
time I got introduced to SDGs.
And she has 2 books published, correct?
Yeah, 2 books.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
One is this one, and once was like kind of like a fun thing, but that's also somewhat SDG related. She made a travel book, so like travel activities for kids.
She's
and
amazing.
Stuff.
She's so great. Yeah, I love her. All right, so that's number 3. Number 4, I mentioned that with Take Action Global, we have projects open. They're free for anyone, anywhere. We'd love to have you join in. Our next project will be the Climate Action Project. We're specifically focused on SDG 13. It will be a 6-week project. We have wonderful partners like WWF and UN and NASA and many others who join in with us to share. And you can find in our Wakelet for this session, I think the team's going to be adding in the registration link, so you can check that out. And last, Ayush mentioned he is all over social media, so we'd love to connect with you there. I know he and I are good pals on Twitter. We also connect on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, but I am Jen Williams EDU across social platforms. And Ayush, I will let you share on where people can connect with you.
Yeah, well, Ayush 24 is my platform on Instagram and LinkedIn. And SDGs for Children is going to be my Twitter page for my organization. So you can reach out anywhere you want, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Twitter. So Ayush 24 is same for all the social media platforms, and SDGs for Children as well.
Perfect. So I'd love to invite Ms. back in. So with the Heart Wakelet, I'm going to make this hashtag sharing out on social media as my new thing. So I'm excited to hear about any questions that have come in. Ayush and I would love to answer.
So I think there are a few questions which I'm sure Elle will be able to share in the chat. But just for me, I wanted to personally say how absolutely blown away I was from that, like from the beginning to the end. Honestly, like the one thing that I loved so much about the SDGs is just how like super flexible they are, and it's like a baseline where you as an educator or a student can interpret them in different ways and find ways to accomplish them. And that I love that. I love starting with something that's not necessarily vague, but that's quite like simple, but the way to get there, you can be super imaginative when you're trying to get there, which is really cool. I like that there's so many different pathways towards each of those goals, and also how it supplements the curriculum as well. You know, I speak to so many teachers every day, and you know, that's one of the reasons why we introduced the Wakelet Student Ambassador Program, for example. It's kind of fill in those gaps that educators have in the curriculum, and there's so many awesome things that they might want to do that don't necessarily fit into the curriculum. And this is an amazing way to kind of broaden those horizons and get students to have those experiences that you know, they might not otherwise have the opportunity to. I love the emphasis on collaboration, of course. It's a completely collaborative effort, and I think that that's going to be really attractive to the educators which are joining us in the chat today. And you know, it gives people something really powerful and a goal to work towards. There are so many people that just kind of, you know, walk about and kind of, you know, go about their everyday lives without having a singular goal that kind of, you know, channels what they do. And I love that. And I think that getting that into the hands of students at a really early age is super, super powerful. Thank you so much, Ayush, because I think I speak on behalf of everybody who's joined us today in saying that you are really, like, legitimately, I know that this word gets said quite a lot, but one of the most inspiring young students I've ever seen in my life. Like the way that you are, honestly, the way that you articulate your thoughts, the things that you've achieved, you know, the ambition that you have, and the way that you've been able to take something like this and, you know, form all of the amazing things that you have around it and then share that on social media, it's truly mind-blowing. So, you know, that's really, really incredible. I'm just going to check and see, Elle, if there are any questions that we can ask before we jump on. Honestly, when I was looking through the comments, I'm not sure if everybody saw, but they were just positive, like amazing comments from everybody who were just going crazy in the chat.
Yeah, my phone's also buzzing right now. I think so. There was a comment like follow. Like I got 89 notifications in 2 minutes. Like what's happening?
Yeah.
We've got a pretty cool question, I think, which will tie this together really nicely. And I apologize because there's all of a sudden the sun's just bursting.
Beautiful. I told you I was bringing the sunshine from Florida.
I'll try and stay focused. So we have got one question which I think is a really good way to you know, sort of wrap all of this up, which is, obviously a lot of educators today are going to feel really inspired about the things that they've seen and are going to just want to jump into this in the next school year and start, you know, hammering out these SDGs and kind of working towards them. What do you think are some quick and easy ways that educators can just bring the SDGs in the classroom? I know that you mentioned, you know, just printing off that poster as a start, but I'd love to hear from Ayush, like in your experience, sort of what tips would you give to teachers who are looking to adopt this in their classrooms?
The tip that I can give, like as a student only, the tip that I can give is the use of social media and the tools that is out there on the internet. For example, Flipgrid. Like now, my teachers are one tool that my teachers are using a lot these days is a Kahoot, and I think so everyone has heard of that app. It's like a quiz app for the whole classroom. So we have Kahoot like every week, kind of recapitulation and what's going on in the world kind of stuff. So like fun week kind of stuff. So there are a lot of tools out there in the internet that can be used for, like, if we are just talking about spreading awareness about sustainable development. And then there's always like all the 5 tips that was given by Jennifer ma'am in her presentation were all pretty good. So yeah, those are kind of the things that I could recommend as a student.
Awesome. And Jennifer, what about you? If there was one thing that an educator can take away and do the next school year, what would it be?
I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to do two. First is follow Ayush. I would definitely recommend following Ayush, because he can connect you to other students too who have a voice in this space, and follow their lead. Like that's kind of what I'm doing. But my other tip would be to really just be gentle with yourself. And as you mentioned, the SDGs can fit in so nicely to work that you're already doing. I know for me, I am always resisting this temptation to hurry up. And I have a hard time being patient when I have this goal that I want to reach, and so much work that needs to be done. And so at the end of every day, I'm like, I just wish I had more time in a day. And so I'm constantly giving myself this message of just be gentle and do the work, but know that all those little efforts will add up. So that's my recommendation to others. And again, to you, thank you for this invitation to be able to share today about our work, our community. Huge shout out to them. We are just a space for educators to share and do the work. So I am representing all of them here today, and I know Ayush is representing all of the youth. So thank you to you and to the Wakelet team, and congratulations on this effort.
No, I appreciate it so much, honestly. I appreciate you, Jennifer, for joining us, and obviously Ayush, and thank you for everybody who's joined us today and taken, an hour out of your days to learn something new. I think that the people who've joined us today are probably super focused now and are like, I need to get these SDGs in my classroom, especially after hearing the prime example of Ayush speaking and talking about what he's been doing so articulately. So I really appreciate you all. Everybody, the certificate for this session will be in the chat. You may have already got it, but I'm sure I will be able to share it again. And obviously there will be a Wakelet collection with all of the resources which have been shared today for everybody to go and take a look at afterwards as well. And I also recommend Ayush and Jennifer to go and take a look at the YouTube video after this and just see the comments that have been coming through, because they are absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, really inspiring. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Ayush. Thank you everybody for joining us. It's been spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.